Welcome to Perilous Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're here for another Monday mini-sode.
Yeah, Monday minis. We get to focus in on one thing for a little bit shorter period of time. It's like what's your whistle as you're getting ready to go into the week, and then Wednesday you get the full course meal. You know what I'm saying with our podcast? It's like a full hour plus episode, but this is just like an appetizer. Maybe that's what I should call it. It's like our appetizer.
There you go.
Get you ready for what's to come. And today we're going to be continuing our Monday mini series about garage sales. And we're talking about we talked about what to do when you're there. How can
the phrases that you use,
phrases you can use and all. Now we're like, how can we ensure that we're leaving a lasting impression? How can we make sure that we're potentially maximizing profit at that garage sale, not just today, but for future generations to come? Okay, maybe not that far, but for days and years to come.
All right. So the first thing is always be grateful. And I think it doesn't take much. You make a sale, you exchange the money, and on the way out say, hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate, you working with me. That's it. Right. Or if it's a major haul, like I've mentioned this before, sometimes I'll even send a thank you note to that address. Right. And just because you just never know, you might end up a year later, there's a garage sale at the same location. They're like, hey, you're that guy that, was really grateful, or you're the guy that sent the thank you card, whatever it is. And you're able to get a better deal or, you just never know. You never know. I can't tell you how many garage sales I walked away and I was grateful. I'm like, hey, thanks so much. Really appreciate. And, sometimes, and I'll talk about this later, I'll leave my business card, and I left a lasting impression where they decided, hey, well, let's call this guy and let's make another deal.
Yeah, okay? I mean, attitude is huge for sure. And your attitude while you're there too can make a huge impact. And Orlando's given stories about actually like helping at estate sales, being willing to help like in their attic, moving stuff around. But I've noticed that even small things, especially if you show up to a garage sale early, and it's hard for some people to do that. You see the 7 o'clock, no early birds. And so you try and honor that, but then you get there at 7 o'clock and they're like, yeah, half my stuff's already gone. So you eventually get calloused to those warnings to stay away, and you come early. And sometimes people are still setting stuff up, and a little thing, like I've been at garage sales, and like an older lady is trying to like drag a grill from the side of her house to the front. And I have no interest in buying this grill. But I can keep looking through her stuff that I'm wanting to buy and watch her struggle. Or I could say, oh, do you need some help with that? And go over and move it for her. And not because, hey, I'm doing this hoping that I'm going to be able to necessarily get a better deal. There is obviously, that would be great if that happens. But just being a nice, helpful human being can make an impact and make something like, wow, what a nice person. So that could have an impact while you're there. And potentially, again, it could help down the road when they're like, hey, you know what? I've got more stuff. I don't have it out now, but if you want to come back, have you ever been offered to like come back to the garage sales? Like, oh yeah, come back, I don't have it all sorted out. My son's going to be back and look through his stuff. But if you come back in like a week, we can look through these things we have in the house.
Oh yeah.
And so those types of things, being helpful, opens up those doors. Whereas if you're just like in your own world and ignoring the fact that somebody might need some help, you're definitely not going to be opening those doors at all.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Now, the other one is, I would definitely encourage you to pay up if you plan to be a repeat buyer. What I mean by this is maybe they have a bunch of items, right? And you really want a lot of the items, but they have their certain price point. Okay. So you buy some of them and you don't lowball them. You just go, they give you a price and you're like, I normally wouldn't spend this much, but maybe I'm going to come back and buy more. It's okay to pay up. Right. Because in the end, you're paying your way into another sale. And so be aware of that, because sometimes, I've seen it before where there'll be a reseller in there and they'll lowball like crazy and they get a deal and that's it. And then I'll come in after. I'm like, hey, you know what? Let me pay up a little bit for these right here. And if you ever want to sell these other ones.
Orlando does not pay up often though. Like this would be like you're trying to make a deal, like a long-term connection. So like if you're just at a random garage sale, you're fighting for every penny.
100%. Yeah, I agree. But if I know I'm going to be, this is why I put in our notes, if I know I'm going to be a repeat buyer.
Right. So you're like at an estate sale, you've seen these workers at estate sales before, that type of thing. Like,
yeah. Right. You don't want to appeal that like every single time this person engages me, like they're always going to work me for every dollar they can, because some people are okay with it. Some people know the business and other people, it just, it's very off-putting, and people don't want to deal with individuals like that. So
it's good.
So you got to be wise.
The next one is share some stories. This is kind of goes back to that idea of just having that human connection with somebody. And a lot of times we've talked in our previous episodes where you ask them if they have a story about an item, right? Like, what's the story behind this? Mm-hmm. That could be beneficial. And sometimes getting involved with that, like, oh, my son loves this show or these items. And you start talking to them. That could be the thing that opens up doors to other things too. Oh, my son actually just got into this type of toy, and then they go, oh, you know what? Actually, we have a whole bunch more of this stuff. And then it allows that where if you're just like, hey, do you have anything else you're selling? Then they might be like, no. But once you start sharing stories, you start talking to them about like, oh, you know what? I used to have that when I was in high school. And you start to like have that human connection, because then what it does is, one, it connects you to that person in a way that's more of just, I'm here to take your stuff for as cheap as I can take it. They see you as a person. But two, it gives them an idea of who you are. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could just be do you have Legos? And then run away guy, which again is the person, like maybe they're like, yeah, I have a connection to Legos and I'll always hit you up for Legos for the rest of my life. But that's less likely than if they're like, you know, what are you doing? Like, you know, I resell because, you know, I'm trying to help my wife stay home to help with my son. My son's got a medical condition, so we don't send him to daycare. And so these are the type I tend to sell lots of like electronics and video games and some vintage, and you start telling them what you sell. Boom. Now you've got a connection with that person. They're like, you know what? I might have some of those things, or, oh, my friend actually has a whole bunch of those. He used to collect them and I know he's wanting to get rid of. Sharing those stories, it actually lets them know who you are. And it's a way to humanize the relationship.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the some of the best deals have been through camaraderie. It wasn't that I was trying to, you know, manipulate or anything. It was just like, hey, I see that, you know, some of the stuff is from a school where you're a teacher, and then they say, oh yeah, I taught here. And then I go, oh yeah, I'm a teacher too. And I see, no, it's like, hey, you know what? I understand how it is to be a teacher. I get it. You know, just put it together and let's figure out a deal. Like, you never know. You just never know. So always be willing to share stories. Again, I think I don't know, maybe this wasn't always the way to do things, but I find there are still people that just show up and like, hey, like you said, the Lego guy, or the guy, my nemesis, the runner at the garage sales that just runs ahead of me. You know, I just don't see how you can get further in making deals by just going in and out real quick on what you want. I think building those relationships definitely helps. And so the last one, and we shared this on our last long podcast about networking, leave a business card. Leave a business card. Not saying every single one, but if there's ever one that you bought a lot, or they had mentioned that they have a lot more they still need to bring out, whatever the case is, I can't tell you, I am usually the only person that ever leaves a business card. I just very rare. I can't think of one time where I was at a garage sale and somebody else was leaving their business card. Right. And it's funny because, you know, there's a lot of resellers in San Diego, but having that business card gives you that last impression. I have mentioned the story about these individuals that sell Rain Spooner shirts to me all the time. And my business card is on their fridge. So every time they go and open that fridge, they see my business card. So yeah, make those business cards. Yeah. All right. So hopefully all these help you to leave an impression at garage sales, from being grateful, helping out, being, you know, that person that's able to pay up, sharing some stories, or just leaving a business card. In the end, garage sales are a great way to network and get those incredible deals. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Late.
Peace.